growing up in Canada, I used to read a lot of Farley Mowat growing up, and for people that aren't familiar with him outside of Canada, he's kind of a prominent Canadian author that did a lot of writing about his experiences in northern Canada, and he was also an activist for a lot of the Indigenous northern communities up there as well. So ever since I was a child, I've always wanted to go up to northern, like polar region further up north from where I was located. And so I applied to this residency on a whim, not even thinking that like anything would come of it. And then when I was accepted, it kind of became this like sinking reality that I'm going to be going to this place that a lot of people don't really get to experience firsthand. And especially like a place like Svalbard, Norway, which is one of the furthest places that you can go north. It has the town that's the furthest northern point in the world, but it's also like in terms of its history, it has a lot of scientific research in terms of how climate change is impacting the polar regions. And then there is also a lot of history throughout the island of like all of the different people that's passed through, from fur trappers and the whalers and the oil and coal excavation that was like happening throughout the 20th century and is in moderation today. But having that experience during the period of time that I was up there, I just thought it was so important to use music as a way to connect people there, knowing that most people would never get to experience it firsthand like I did. And so a lot of my work has been kind of taking a lot of the information and the stories and the experiences and the continued research that I'm doing in terms of expanding it into like multiple narratives
Mm.
in terms of natural environments, humanity, a lot of the geopolitical tensions that we're seeing, not just in Svalbard, but also Greenland right now, with a lot of interest with nations and occupation of these polar regions. And so, as a musician and the music that I'm working on right now, specific to the Arctic, I feel like it's important to share and create some sort of awareness in audiences when experiencing my music as to what's going on up there right now, because it is such an important part of our planet. And also, there's a lot of complexity that has occurred throughout hundreds of years of history up there and is at like a really pivotal point globally right now in terms of where it stands and nationalism amongst countries with moving forward who has the power and say to do what and where. Yeah.
So I know that we're speaking in the middle of January 2026, and so a lot of what you're talking about with Greenland and stuff has been very recently in the news. But I'm curious if you were thinking about these things prior to going to this residency, or if this is stuff that surfaced while you were there, or if it was,
Um,
yeah.
I think I was that I remember when we first got to the residency and we were about to depart on our ship for 2 weeks. The expedition guide told us that there's going to be two events that happen. The first being what we think the Arctic is versus how we experience it. And like my personal idea of what the Arctic was versus how I saw it are polar opposite. No, no pun intended. In terms
Yeah.
of uh, of like what I envisioned it to be versus the reality of it. Um, and I think one of the things that I'm constantly trying to navigate in terms of sound is how can I interpret in a way where the essence and the experiences of what I witnessed directly can be conveyed to audiences so that they can also get a glimpse into what the Arctic is, and also have them question their vision of what the Arctic is in their minds. It's one of those things where you go into it and it seems like a really exciting thing, like, oh, I'm going to be up in the Arctic and I'm going to be out in the wilderness for weeks, versus like the day-to-day reality of just being there and being present and like experiencing it firsthand. It's difficult to define in words, and I think that's also why things like art and more abstract ways of expression like music can kind of step in and kind of fill
Yeah.
those gaps.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Micromaker by Loose Leaf Transmissions. We hope you enjoyed this brief glimpse into the inner workings of the creative life. If this resonated with you, be sure to check out the full conversation on Music Maker with Tyler Klein, a podcast exploring craft and process, philosophy and inspiration, and the honest, often messy parts of being an artist, creative uncertainty, purpose and identity, and resilience. You can find Music Maker wherever you get your podcasts or by visiting musicmakerpodcast.com.